technology problems, something I need to work on. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. First, I want to acknowledge how horrific the scenes from the nation's capital were yesterday. Certainly, there are other things we want to talk about closer to home. However, it was a very dark day for democracy yesterday in Washington, D.C., and I'm glad that the proceedings of Congress have been completed as it relates to the presidential election. And the violence and the threats towards elected members, their staff, as well as journalists is very disturbing and completely unacceptable. And I think we'll be dealing with the repercussions of that for some time to come. In the Capitol in Salem, we're taking our security very seriously, and we could go into more depth about that. We are engaging in ongoing discussions with the Oregon State Police on how to address safety concerns for everyone who works in the Capitol. And like I said, we can talk about that a little bit more. But primarily, we want to start off with talking about the Capitol Operations Safety Plan for the 21 session that you should all have a final copy of. It came out, I think, with the press release. You know, legislatures across the country have been grappling with, since the pandemic began, how to operate safely and do their business in a way that will keep people safe without members getting ill. And in some cases, in some legislatures, they haven't done a very good job. In fact, members have gotten sick. In fact, some members have died from COVID-19 because they haven't done a good job. So we have taken this issue, very, very seriously, the Senate President and I. The Senate President and I have been committed since day one to keep people safe in this pandemic. The way we have operated from the early days of the pandemic with the Special Committee on Coronavirus Response, if you recall that back in March and April, how we ran those committees and how we did that partially remotely with distancing in those rooms, to how we've completed 3 successful special sessions in a way that kept people safe, but it enabled us to do the business. That is a testament to our commitment to public health protocols and following the science in terms of keeping people safe. As you know, the Capitol has been closed to the public. It's been only open to authorized personnel since the start of the pandemic in March, and that was been for the protection of public health. As we know, the pandemic will be with us for a foreseeable future. More than 1,500 Oregonians have died from COVID-19, and our state's hospital capacity continues to be stretched thin. There's still a high level of community spread throughout the state, and Marion County has been designated extreme risk for quite a while. We do not want our actions in the Capitol starting this month to make matters worse. And in fact, we want to model best workplace practices so that people's work can get done safely. So the document you have, the Capitol Operations Safety Plan, has been in the works for months. We convened a process back in September that brought together the core teams within the Capitol, the different legislative employees who work from facilities to committee work to all the things that happen to make the branch function. It's been a bipartisan process, Democrats and Republicans participating throughout. We've had nonpartisan staff. We've reviewed plans with the Oregon Health Authority and OHSU, and Oregon State Police have also been involved. Our goals have been twofold: to balance public health with public input and participation in the legislative process. We have focused on safety primarily, and we want to have a plan that focuses on making sure the process in this environment is transparent. We want public engagement, and we want to be able to do the people's work. You can see in the plan that the floor sessions will be very similar to what we have been doing in the 3 special sessions in terms of protocols on the floor, distancing, when members can be on the floor for voting. That has worked well. We will continue that. Committees will begin meeting only remotely, virtual hearings to do the early work in the session as it relates to committee work. We are adjusting the rules that we follow around increasing the amount of time for when amendments have to be posted, making sure that public hearings and work sessions are not happening on the same day, opening up the public record longer so people can participate if they are, unable to come to the Capitol. I mean, here's the thing. We've had people who haven't been able to participate before because they couldn't take a day off to go to Salem. Now, with everything being remotely, we have equalized the participation in a way that I think is something we want to maintain going forward. But at this point, committees will be virtual at the beginning. We're going to enhance our outreach and communications to the public about our process. one could argue things we should have done in the past, and now we're going to do that at a greater level in terms of making sure everyone understands what our process is, how they can participate remotely by phone or by video. But that expansion of participation by audio or video testimony is huge. It's significant, and it's something I think we'll be modeling into the future once the pandemic is no longer front and center in our lives. Let's see what else. I think what I would just say is we're going to continue to follow the data, what the public health data says. The plan will say that the metrics around the risk factors of having more public entry into the building will be assessed starting in February on a weekly basis, and we will adjust accordingly as we go in a bipartisan fashion with all the caucus leaders to decide how we can allow people back into the building. So this will be an ongoing process, and this document is our framework and our starting point. The other issue you see in the document, it does talk about additional safety planning as it relates to demonstrations. We will have enhanced guidance from the Oregon State Police, probably by next week about some of that. And I just want to say briefly about that we certainly won't go into the details publicly about additional numbers of staff in the building from OSP or anything else we might physically do to the building to enhance our security. I think we will keep that under wraps because that is a safety issue. But one of the other things we will be doing is enhancing what we do within the building, notifications for folks, safety planning within the building, knowing your evacuation routes, knowing the things that could happen in the building during a demonstration that gets out of hand so people can feel safer. So we will be having our standard, but at this point, enhanced training with OSP next week with all staff in the building, as well as press. So we will be working on that. Certainly yesterday's activities have really highlighted the need to be very clear about how we keep people safe and still do the people's business. Before I turn it over to the Senate President, I do want to talk about, again, what happened on Monday, December 21st, when we had our third special session. Protesters were able to enter the Capitol unauthorized, and they were focused on disrupting the proceedings, not unlike what happened in the Capitol, in our nation's capital yesterday. We have been waiting to talk publicly about one element of the entry of the demonstrators, and that is that Oregon State Police has confirmed and informed us that Representative Mike Neerman did open a door to allow demonstrators into the building. This was a serious breach of public trust. His actions put staff and legislators and law enforcement in danger. In fact, law enforcement officers were hurt when demonstrators came into the building. Arrests were made. Legislative staff and members felt terrorized by the incursion, particularly our members who are members of color, because the rhetoric of the demonstrators is out of the Trump playbook and very much caters to white supremacist motivations. So people were very upset by that entry into the building by the demonstrators. Representative Neerman's actions were completely unacceptable. This is serious, and his behavior was reckless and dangerous. We are looking into our options of how we can address his actions. We've been waiting for further advance on the criminal investigation, but we are not waiting until that is concluded at this point. We will be moving forward in some form or fashion as it relates to Representative Neerman's actions. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Senate President.
I would like to say that every time we hold a pressability or this kind of moment, we're reacting to something that has happened very recently versus for a long period of time. First was when we got word back in March, we had this virus, and that caught us off guard. I said it at the time, and we had to adjust to that and work hard. It led to a 3-day special session, a 1-day special session, and another 1-day special session. But then lo and behold, we got caught this summer. We weren't expecting what happened. The great fire came down upon us, and it really was devastating. We did not expect to have that kind of fire, and we really suffered as a state and still are suffering. And then we have this desire to destroy and to be violent and to life threatened by people who are angry or upset or frustrated or just mean spirited, and has created a real crisis for our way of governing ourselves. So I haven't made an official statement on what happened yesterday. I will say that a statement would be something that I believe that what happened on December 21st in Oregon, in our capital, involving violence and destruction and life-threatening activities, and continues to this day, because I was not allowed in the building yesterday, and I'm talking to you from the building, but I drove around it a few times, continues to this day. And what happened on January 6th was just the nation's capital, is another example of an attempt to occupy and take over a place of government, specifically the legislative branch, although for all I know, they'll target others. And I just am very concerned because I view our way of governance as being fragile. I think a lot of people assume because we've been in this kind of form of government for some 200 plus years that we can fight our way through it and get through it. But I think that when you look at the processes and the procedures and the institutions, as well as the physical structures that allow us to disagree with one another and to struggle with one another and to dissent with each other and to challenge each other competitive, you begin to realize they're designed to make sure when we get through of all the dissent and the discussions and the disagreements and amendments, et cetera, that we have decisions that allow us to maintain our way of life, that is, talk about freedom and things. And if you're going to tear those down, what follows is anarchy, followed by a brutal dictator. I'm just going to say it. So I do think today is a day, and it's funny, I was worried about occupations the day after what happened to us on the 21st. And I called the state police. I had one of these panic attacks. I said, does it occur to you that might want to move in the direction of Malheur 2? He said, Peter, we've just met with the city police on that very thing. And sure enough, that happened. And I can't say enough that, and I've talked twice. I talked to our Republican leader, by the way, every day. We get along fine, working together. And we're both very bothered by what's going on. Not that I need to bring him into it, but we're very bothered because you can talk like I'm talking, saying it shouldn't be. It threatens our very form of government. It does. You cannot take for granted the way we govern ourselves. You can't. But I keep getting the question, how are you going to stop it? When's it going to stop? And to be frank with you, I worry about that. I don't have a nice, cute answer for all of you. Meanwhile, we've got to start to make public policy and to pass a state budget come Monday. And we don't make any excuses about, well, we'll delay or, this. We got a capital that's basically the public is not in at this time. We're going to try hard to get them in as soon as we can. We've got this structure. You heard the speaker talk about it, this matrix committee. I'm on it. Speaker's on it. All the caucus leaders are on it. We're every week going to look at it. And we're going to check to see where the ranking of Marion County is in terms of the risk. I talked to, here you go, you're tired of hearing me say that. I talked to my infectious disease doctors yesterday and said, okay, we're going in Monday. What do you think, Peter? I think you should keep it as it is. You've done okay in the summer. We did okay, but I'm not saying that's great because this thing is out there watching us. So we're going to go in. We got to organize. It's going to be a sad day for those people that are sworn in, particularly the ones that have never been here before, because they're not going to be able to celebrate it. So we're not going to have a joint session. I'm not going to be able to bring in all the flowers I want. I'm bringing in some flowers. Two houses won't be able to see each other, get together. So it's sad because it's a very memorable day, the day you're first sworn into the Oregon Legislature. I still remember my day way back in 1981. So that's sad, but we're going to answer the bell. We're going to take the field. We're going to work hard. We're going to do our committee work, all of our committees. We will be back into the building before because we have to vote on the measures that are going to come out of our committees, and they will be measures coming out. And we got to get through this, and we got to we just got to find a way. We're doing unprecedented things, unprecedented. Like at noon today, I've changed the entire caucus agenda for the Democrats. We're bringing in the state police because I really want, there's tremendous interest now. What about that whole area? And so there's just an example of where your life changes daily around this place. We used to think it was because of disease. Used to think of it because there's a terrifying, terrible fire. And I'll tell you, the big issue, which is really out there, is the school closure issue. I'm very worried. And now I'm just thinking of it, vaccines. I mean, vaccines is on us, and we've got to deal with that in as many aggressive ways we can. And then we got this wanting to tear the government structures to pieces. So we don't have to make excuses. We signed up. We chose to be elected. We're going to take oaths of office. I hope we are, those of us that are supposed to. And, let's have at it. I mean, we got the ability. We know how to do this, sort of. Do we have no playbook? Yeah. But we, in some weird way, those special sessions, Madam Speaker, and even the e-boards, we're going to have another e-board tomorrow. I think it's our 13th one, have taught us how to do some of the things we're doing right now. I mean, I don't think there'd be as many as members of the press in this press availability if you had to be in the same room the speaker and I were in. I just really don't, I've never seen it. I'm amazed at all these people that apparently are here. And so, we're struggling with this. I do think the media is very much lockstep with us on this. And that is not to say we're good or bad. You can do whatever you want there. But the media's role is as great today as it's ever been to dealing with a country that's reeling and a country that is hurting. And so I'm grateful that this number of people would show up for this event virtually, even though, as I learned when I was being playful before it started, Madam Speaker, you weren't here, that this is not a good hour to do this because these individuals are not out of bed yet. So I did not know that. And so I want to apologize to you, but there's no clock in my life. I'm just, there's just work, connect the plow to me and just get me out in the field and I'll plow. So here we go. Let's get to these questions or comments or criticisms you have for us.
Thank you, President Courtney and Speaker Kotek. All right, we've got in the question queue right now, Dick Hughes and then Peter Wong. We're going to try to give people the chance to ask a question before we go to second question. So please just make a note in the chat box if you want to get into the queue. So Dick, go ahead.
Thank you very much. How was the decision, if I understand correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you will convene on Monday or meet Monday in person, but then the legislators will mostly all go home and have remote committee meetings until April, probably when floor sessions would start. Is that understanding correct? And also, how was the decision made that the governor would not deliver her State of the State address virtually on Monday? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Dick. Well, in terms of floor sessions, floors will not be meeting regularly until April, but floor sessions can happen at the call of the Speaker and the Senate President for mostly the purpose of moving forward first reading of bills. So on Monday, we will have nearly 3,000 bills first read for introduction in the House they were pre-session filed. So we have a starting number of bills, but bills cannot be referred to committees until they are first read. So I would anticipate, and we're trying to figure out what day of the week that could occur, some floor sessions in end of January and February, primarily for the reason of allowing bills to be first read, put into the record so we can refer them to committees. But actual moving of bills, unless there is some reason to convene to move something that is urgent, I don't think you see bills moving until April because of that reason. And so that will give committees a lot more time to work through the bills. And traditionally, we don't move a lot of significant bills that early anyway. So I think it'll be just fine, but it will be focused early on for virtual committees only.
So let's understand that we said Monday is simply the day where you come in and you get sworn in and do those things. Whether or not a member goes home is up to them. because on the 19th is when the session starts in terms of committee works, the 19th. And an individual can be in the building, or they can be living in Salem, even though they're not from here. But the committees will be done virtually. They're going to all be done virtually until we don't do them. So that's the key. The 19th is when the committee work starts virtually. That's all been arranged. What I'm a little worried about, Madam Speaker, I'm just going to say this because of this. I've learned since this thing all started, depending upon when you think it started, in February of last year or whenever, that we say we're coming back in April. That makes me a little nervous because I thought we should leave that window open. It's conceivable we'd have to come in earlier than that. I don't know. We'd be ready for something earlier that we need to do, i.e. something on vaccinations. And I don't know that, but so I'm a little nervous saying absolutely. So the plan is, the thing you need to know is our committees are going to meet virtually. Any bills that require the vote on the House floor, the Senate floor, we have to come back in physically, personally, in person to vote on. So this is a dynamic that we're going to be dealing with in a way we've never had to deal with before, even regarding special session. Nothing has prepared us for this. So I hope that has cleared it up a bit about what we're up against here. And I do hope, I'm going to say, I mean, you're going to hold me to whatever you want as you write articles or do this electronically. But I do think we've got a dynamic on our hands that we're trying to open the Capitol. We're trying to make sure that we do our bill work, that is, get the bills passed by a chamber, moved to the others. And we're trying to pick exact dates. And I think that's very risky stuff to do that at this stage of the game.
And in regard to your other question, it is not safe to do a joint session on opening day, on convening day. So in terms of the speech and the state of timing of that, I would say take that up with the governor's office. When we decided we wouldn't be having a joint session, I think everything kind of got put to the wayside. There's a lot going on, but I assume there will be a state of the state address sometime in the future.
Yeah, I brought that up 100 years ago. It sounds like I have no idea who made that decision, but I didn't tell the governor, you're not speaking. That would not be in our best interest in the legislature to say that. Just make it clear to you. I do not know how exactly who decided that, but once the joint session went away, then that speech went away.
Thank you.
All right, next, let's go to Peter Wong at the Portland Tribune.
Thank you very much. I will follow up on Dick's question. I assume you are not anticipating emergency legislation early in the session, but that could happen. Mr. President, you remember during your first session as president in 2003, they had what we now call the sixth special session. When the economic forecast went bluey and you had another $300 million hole. So I assume that tomorrow's meeting of the E-Board is intended to take care of any urgent budget matters until that point in the session where you folks can vote on the floor. I mean, folks can vote on the floor safely. But I just want you two to discuss the time between tomorrow's emergency board and any further fiscal actions that might be necessary prior to later in the session when you convene as a body.
Yeah, so we have an emergency board scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. If you recall, in the third special session, thank you, Peter, for the question. We allocated money to the emergency fund, and some of them in special purpose appropriations for wildfire and COVID response, anticipating that we would need to provide some bridge funding for the first 3 months of this year when the coronavirus relief fund dollars expired. Now, with the new federal package, some of those dollars can be carried over, but there are still some actions we should take related to wildfire and COVID response that we do not want to risk not being able to do for the first 3 months of the year. So that's what you see on the agenda. There certainly will be a rebalance and other budget issues mid-session like normal, but we didn't want to have this gap in funding for very urgent needs. And so that's why we're having the emergency board. And on budget issues, I don't think we'll have a lot of decisions made on the budget until after the May forecast. The March forecast, I think, will be instructive, but I think you'll be seeing a lot of the budget work late in session, but that does not preclude us from having a lot of virtual conversations to discuss options on what to do, depending on how the May revenue forecast comes in.
Well, Peter, I really like you, but I'm sorry that you've been around as long as I have been, because you brought up something I like to repress and not think about 2003. The point is, I hope I'm adding to what the speaker said. Ironically, we had a meeting yesterday late about, do we do another special session? In addition, and excuse me, do we know another e-board? What I'm worried about here is you have the vaccination issue, you have the school issue, and there could be even more federal money coming. And so I don't know if we're going to have the luxury to say, well, we'll deal with all budget issues finally, we'll work them through to May, and then we'll do it in May. I don't know that. When you got the dynamics around vaccinations in schools, just to give you an example, I don't know whether or not we'll be forced to do something in a legislative sense much, much earlier than people would think. So I want to leave that out there. I'm constantly trying to make you understand. I want to keep every window and door open because if you look at the last 11 months, I think all of you, your own personal lives have changed, your professional lives have changed, and they're still changing, tumbling. And this thing is, we're still there. We're right there. We're not through the pandemic. We're not through dealing with the fires. We're surely not through dealing with the violence in our governmental structures. We're still trying to figure out how to get all the schools open. So yes, Peter, but Peter, I've been in so many sessions where when we've had to act quickly, we've done it. And I mean quickly. Whether we use the e-board situation, which means between the 11th of January and the 19th of January, I don't know. This time there's no plans. But again, what you're getting from me is a vagueness because I'm nervous, again, saying we will not, when so many things I thought we would end up doing and have.
When I agree with the Senate President, all members will have to be adaptable and flexible. The framework around the Capital Operations Safety Plan provides both clear guidance and flexibility to adapt as the situation hopefully improves through the rest of the session. So, and the more press information we can share in these types of settings, we will, because things are bound to change, and we will have to, every day and every week is a new adventure in the pandemic.
Thank you. As a personal note, if there had been no pandemic, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be thinking of retirement, but nope, I'm signed up for the next duration. So.
All right, let's go to Dirk Vanderhart at OPP.
Yeah, a question for you, Speaker Kotek, just on the thing about Representative Neerman. You have a lot of power as Speaker in terms of committee assignments and all sorts of stuff, but what is the range of possibility as you look toward what a disciplinary action might look like? And would it have to go through conduct committee? Is it something you can do on your own? Help me understand how that works.
Thank you, Dirk. Thanks for the question. Well, first, we've been waiting to give a little bit of space for the Oregon State Police to conduct their criminal investigation, because that is still an option and that has not been concluded yet. So I can't speak to that, and I don't think OSP is ready to speak to that either. In terms of consequences internal to the building, we are still trying to figure that out. We have consulted employee services as well as the Legislative Equity Office about is this a hostile workplace violation? Should it go through the conduct committee? That's a potential. It could be multiple things. It could be that. There's the criminal sanction potentially. There could be things like what I've done in the past around committees. We are exploring all options, and honestly, we've been trying to get ready for Monday, but this is an urgent issue, so hopefully I'll know more by early next week.
Dirk, I think you're on mute if you're asking a follow-up.
Sorry, yes. Is it something you've discussed with the House Republican office at all, the fact that this has apparently happened?
I think I would say speak with Leader Drazen directly. My assumption is she is aware of the issue, but we have not spoken today about, we have a meeting later today about, and I'm sure this issue will come up.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Lauren Dake, also at OPB.
Great, thank you. Thanks for holding this. A question for both of you. Could you give me a sense of what your conversations have been like with your Republican colleagues about this plan to, hold session largely virtually, at least initially? I mean, have they agreed with this plan? Where have they pushed back? And then also, have you had conversations with them about maybe reaching out to their constituents, particularly those who might be inclined to demonstrate outside the Capitol, about ways that they can be engaged even though the Capitol will be closed?
So in terms of thank you for the question, Lauren. In terms of the Capitol Operation Safety Plan, it has been both a bipartisan and nonpartisan process since September. I will not say that, I can't say that our House Republican colleagues agree with the final recommendation of the Senate President and I about the current status of the building and who is allowed in to do the work early on in the session. We do have disagreement there. Our House rules, for example, will codify some of these temporary safety measures. And I say temporary because it'll depend on when the pandemic is in a state where we don't need them. But we will be voting on these as part of House rules on opening day, and I expect that there will be pushback from our Republican colleagues. In terms of talking to members, I have personally spoken with a couple members who I've suggested to them that their social media comments are unhelpful and actually dangerous as it relates to the pandemic. And I think some of them have thought about it and taken some of that to heart. But this is about personal relationships and trying to convince people that their roles as elected leaders, what they say is very important, how they say it. And not everybody is in agreement there. There are people in some of these districts who believe have a certain perspective. Nonetheless, our job is to have a plan for the Capitol that keeps people safe and enables us to do the people's business with significant public engagement. And that's what we're planning to do.
I'm just trying to get through one day at a time. And like today, I've already spoken to Senator Fred Gerard twice. I talked to him like 3 or 4 times yesterday. No, they're not supportive of the Capitol being, shall we say, officially closed, or however you want to word that. They're not. However, I do hope that they understand we have the Matrix Committee, which is duty is to try to make sure that if any chance we can start to open parts of it or sometime, that they're on that committee and that they get a chance to really have their say. So, but in good faith, I mean, I'm not going to speak for the Senate Republicans or their leader, but they have already given us physical documents because we asked for input on our plans, and some of the input is clear that they oppose that, and so that's where we're at. And so I want you to understand, though, Monday is a dynamic day because we have to meet. We have to meet, otherwise people don't get sworn in. And I'm working very hard to make it an effort that individuals can come to the floor or to the galleries, because the speaker's right. We're passing some major rules involving wearing masks, as well as the use of our galleries to be able to vote and make speeches from, even, I believe I can say that, yes. And they'll be opposed to that, those things. I don't know so much about the gallery as much as the mask issue among things. But some of the rule changes involving greater notice, more hours of notice, about putting amendments on bills and things, which are positive that all of us are together on. But the fact is, no, we start out in different positions come Monday at 11 o'clock on the Senate floor, because we're going on 11 o'clock, which is much later than we ordinarily would. We go on at 8:30. So we're going on a late 11 o'clock. But at this time, I can honestly say, I really have worked very hard to make sure that the Republicans' leadership on the Senate side was included in so many of these things. So at least they get the feeling, good faith feeling, because I mean it, that, well, this is what we're trying to do. What do you think? And whether or not they agree or not, I like to think they think, well, we know what was going on. We were kept abreast of what was going on, because I think that's very important to what we're trying to do, to credibility. I'll just say it straight out. We need each other. We do need each other. Oh yeah. Even if we end up arguing with each other, we need each other. So, that's all I can tell all I can tell you about that situation in terms of where the Senate is. And I hope things work out okay Monday. I'm sweating rocks. I'm worried. I'm nervous and tense because it's my nature. We've worked hard to get ready together. We'll see what happens.
And the only other thing I would add to that is just a little bit of historical context is the Senate has had remote voting for a while in your rules, at least the last 3 or 4 years, if I recall. We have not had remote voting in our rules. We will have that added to our rules for this situation. It is something that members have been asking for, Republican members, if they are unable to say get to Salem in the past because of weather or something. We haven't allowed it. We're now allowing it. The video testimony issue is something that we honestly haven't prioritized as much as we probably should have. And now it is what we have to do. And that has been a Republican ask for quite a while as well. So there is an upside to this. And there's not going to be complete agreement on the way we're going to operate. And that's just the way it is.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to Sarah Hurwitz at KPTV.
Hello, thank you so much. You mentioned that next week there will be enhanced training with OSP in the building. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Give more of an overview of what that will look like?
Sure. Well, organizational week is what our organizational days after we convene and get sworn in. We have traditionally over the last, I don't know how many years now, had several days of training. Portions of them they're all going to be remote. We have always had OSP training, at least since I can recall, which talks about they have been primarily what you should do in a shooting situation, what you should do to keep yourself safe in the building if there is a violent intruder into the building. So that has been there before. When I say enhanced, we're going to expand that and talk about the things that are coming around. Internal building notifications, things that you might want to do differently depending on the demonstrations. People are scared. People are concerned. And I'm not just talking about members. I'm talking about staff. They want to know, many of them will not be in the building, but for those who will be in the building, they want to know what they should be doing. So when I say enhance, it's like, what can we do to keep ourselves safe? What do we need to make sure when we walk into the building, should be only people who have key cards, things that I think are very common sense approaches to keeping the building safe. So that's what I meant by enhanced, because we have had training in the past around the overall safety in the building.
So Sarah, I'm looking at a document that went out on January 5th of this year to the chief of staffs for the speaker, myself, and it involves, headlines wise, the plan involves entrance and exit information, building notification information, evacuations. And the evacuations is big and new. I'm not sure we've ever spent much time on evacuations. Now it has become a big deal. For example, I'm looking at one thing here, dealing with false alarms. There was a false alarm on that special session day, and members were all over the place. What do we do? What do we do? So our training is going to be much more real in a way, because so many of the subjects they're talking about now, I'm not sure we talked about before, like evacuations. One of the decisions the speaker and I made was that we were going to have all the legislators park in the underground garage over on the mall area and come through a long tunnel into the Capitol from there. And the state police said, please don't do that. That's dangerous because we're not sure how much it would take to make sure that area is secure over there. So we're back to parking down below. And also, if we have to get out of here, if I have to get out of here, our ability to get to the underground garage and then for the state police to get us out of here is a better way to exit. I'm just telling you some of the details. So this kind of plan that's been presented has been adopted in rather in a short period of time, and because of the crisis we're in. So the training is going to be much more intense this year. It's going to get much more real. And plus the state police, I think, one of the problems they have, I think the Speaker would agree, they can't tell us everything for fear that it'll get out, because their intelligence tells them the other side know a lot. They know a lot about what's going on in terms of what we're trying to do to protect ourselves or the institutions. And that's just the way it is. And they do not want them to know about all the areas that we're encroaching, because if they did, it would compromise their ability to protect our exits and entrances, compromise our ability to deal with how members get out of the building. So the training is going to be very dynamic, in my opinion. Like here, like I said, dealing with false alarms, information notification to remain in place. So what happened last week, or when we had our session, is that false alarm, don't leave your offices, but you got to get the word out. Don't move. And there's an example where I'm not sure we've had that kind of specific training before.
Thank you. I just had one quick clarification. You were saying that some of this will be virtual. Can you explain that? So will OSP be in the building, but then some people will be watching it virtually, or how is that working?
My apologies for being unclear. Thanks for the follow-up. All of the trainings will be remote. We have a set of mandatory trainings, of which the training with OSP is mandatory, and it is being held at a time specific virtually. We have other training modules that people need to complete virtually that they can do at their they could do it, late at night, as long as they complete it by a certain date. So we have two types of training. So I'm sorry for the confusion. They're all going to be virtual, except some of them will be time specific, and OSP will be doing 2 time specific trainings of the same type of training, so people can get that. I think members will be paying a lot more attention this year.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll go to Maggie Vespa at KGW.
I appreciate it. And my question was largely answered just now, but I do have just a couple of quick follow-ups. Granted, this may be a moot point, at least for a while, because of restrictions tied to the pandemic, but can you tell us when members of the public might learn, or do you know at this point if there's a timeline on when sort of new restrictions as far as access to the Capitol for members of the public might be released, or when you might know what those protocols might be moving forward? Again, that's kind of assuming we're in a normal world situation where lawmakers are going into the Capitol. And then second, and we talked about this, I think the night of the 21st, when you both had your press conference, just, it's a bit of an emotional question, but just the idea that this has to happen, given that our state capitol has been open to the public, it's the people's building, and now we're sitting here having conversations where that may not be the case moving forward. What is that like, just to sort of wrap your minds around, especially after yesterday?
Peter?
Well, my moment of sadness or emotion took place. The magnitude of the situation when I saw the broken window, the door, was one thing. But I think the thing that really brought it all home to me, and so I'm sort of numb, I'm just going to be frank with you, Maggie, I'm numb, is that I took a picture in the rain last week, I think it was in the rain. I went by, driving by the front of the Capitol, and here's this forklift lifting or whatever device lifting these cement blocks. And I said, oh my word, it's real. And so I parked my car and I got out and I took a picture of they're barricading the front of the Capitol right now. And I've driven by it several times since then, because I only live 2 miles from the Capitol. I have that luxury, so to speak. And I'm still numb about that. That's the symbolism, the visual of that is something in my years of being in Oregon, my Oregon for 50 years, and my relatives fascinated by Oregon, coming their way back in Massachusetts, they were fascinated. And to have that happen symbolically to me was the ultimate statement that, oh my word, it's here. And poor Oregon now has to close up. So I'll just leave it at that. What happened yesterday in the nation's capital, it didn't surprise me. I'll be very frank with you. And I can almost say I expected it, something like that, because of what had happened here. And I was convinced that this taking state capitals, take them, that they were going to try it. The issue of when we're going to talking to people, Maggie, about opening up, all I can say is I got so much written material here. I think, Madam Speaker, and I don't like this timeline, we probably are not going to be able to make any move about opening up, whatever that means, until March, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Speaker, because we anticipate the committee is going to start meeting every week, I believe. Now, let me be careful here, Madam Speaker. It's either in February, and if it's not, it should be March. And I'm talking about the Matrix Committee, Maggie, this committee, which is going to have a very serious role on it to deal with. That would be the first time you could start to see, in case if the incidence of the virus in this county and other areas, as well as our infectious disease, are saying, all right, you could start to open it up. But I don't know before then. And how do you get the word out? Well, right now we have a system that puts online the bills we're considering and our amendments, as well as public hearings. It's all there. It's been used to the extent that, and I think this is right. I don't mean to just brag on it, but in the last special session, Maggie, we heard over 100 Oregonians testify, and 550 pieces of written testimony were received. So what I'm saying is, I think we're doing something good right there, but maybe not, And I can't appeal to the world that you're part of, the world of journalism, which is almost a branch of government now during this crisis, to help us with this, getting the word out. But I can't, Madam Speaker, you can go further on that. I just don't know specifically. Yeah, I'll tell you what, look to see in the middle of March, we'll start to open up the Capitol. I can't say that today. I'd like to say it, but I can't.
Well, and again, I think the framework, and I agree with the Senate President, we don't know. We want to be adaptable. There was a lot of conversation last year when we started the process of looking at all the different scenarios. And some of that is captured in the appendices of the operations plan to give us a roadmap. Well, if things improve, what are our options? So you'll have the leadership within the building, both Senate President and I, and the 4 caucus leaders, looking at these things on a regular basis, saying, okay, is it good enough where we can have additional individuals in the building? Right now, we're starting off with authorized personnel only to limit the number of people in the building for safety reasons, both pandemic and public safety in terms of managing. Frankly, the dynamic of the pandemic is difficult enough, but to also have the threat of domestic terrorists trying to disrupt the democracy of the building is a whole added extra dynamic to complicate things. So we're going to take that all into account. We want to, because if you can't provide equal access once more people are allowed in the building, then that's also a problem. So if you're an individual in a high risk category and it's not safe enough in the building, you're not coming in. That's not proper access. So we want to make sure there's equal access. And what's good about the remote testimony, both by phone or by video, that's an equalization. You don't have to be a paid lobbyist. You can do it from the comfort of your home. You can watch all these things at your leisure. These things have been streamed before, but you can go back and watch it. We're creating a whole new level of public engagement that I think is going to help us do our work better. So we're focusing on that right now, and we will adapt as hopefully the public health metrics improve so we can allow additional individuals into the building as things improve.
All right, let's go to Hillary Baroud at the Oregonian.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. So I was skimming the operations plan and have not found this yet. What is the plan for introducing new legislation? Are you just going to do gut and stuff and you have plenty of correct relating clause bills out there? What is the plan for that? Were you going to hold periodic floor sessions to do those first readings?
Thank you, Hillary. I think we'll have to, and it'll depend on how many bills. I think a lot of people did pre-session file. I think it's a pretty substantial number, so we don't have a good idea about how many bills will follow, but we will have to do periodic first reading only floor sessions. I think in February, we just haven't figured out what day of the week we'll do those to allow bills to be referred. But at some point, the deadlines are going to be such that past February gets a lot more difficult. In terms of, the usual practice of maybe taking an underlying bill and replacing it, that's an amendment. We will have increased notification for amendments. So because when you're not physically in the building, maybe your ability to find out things will take a little longer. So there will be increased notification. Right now, it's a 1 hour notice for amendments. We're debating what that's going to be on both sides, but it will be bigger than 1 hour. So that should address some of the issue there.
The thing that has me worried is that I keep thinking, okay, you did a 3-day special session, you did 2 1-days, you're ready to go. Well, we're not. And I'll tell you why. In a special session, there is one committee, one joint committee that handles the bills. The Speaker and I have been on that 3 times now. It's one bill. Guess what? Not this time, Peter. All the committees are going, all of them. And I mean, the schedule is out when they're going to meet. We had to coordinate it with the House. House had to coordinate with us. You got all those committees are going to start. That is a whole different world for us, a whole different world. So when you say gotten stuff, you're already at a place where I wasn't even. I think you got to start your first public hearing. The bills that are in, they'll be read on my floor, the Senate bills on Monday, and they'll be referred. But this thing will be a churning process. Legislators, I hate to tell you this, well, I don't hate to tell you, I just need to tell you this. The fact that we're in a pandemic, the fact that we've had a bearable fire, the fact that we've got threats, the number of ideas they've got that they want to do has not decreased. I have a feeling, Madam Speaker, I haven't counted them yet, but I think because one of the big pressures that we came under, I did, is you ought to limit bills. And we talked about it, but that didn't go over very well. But so I don't think, Hillary, that we know enough now. I do know we're going to adopt a rule on Monday in the Senate that says if you want to amend a bill, I hope I'm saying this right, Peter, that you have to make sure there's 24-hour legitimate notice of the amendment using the processes we have to announce publicly what we're going to do. That is a good faith attempt to recognize the building is not totally open the way we think of an opening, but it's also a good faith attempt to make sure that the technology we're using is underway and going well and being sure the word gets out. So.
And just some technical things that you might not have completely picked up on, but our committee service folks in Legislative Policy and Research Office, we will have a way to automate for people to sign up for testimony that we haven't had in the 3rd special sessions. Keeping the record open longer will allow for people, because originally, when it's been physical public hearings, the public record closes when the committee closes. We're going to be keeping it open so people who might be watching later that day want to, email testimony in. So I think we're just going to, frankly, have a lot more public engagement than we have had when we are physically in the building.
All right, next we have Lisa Balick at Coin, and we're close to 11 o'clock, so this may be the last question.
Not for me.
Good morning. Thanks for having the opportunity to give us some information. Couple questions is for both of you. Do you have any staff or know of any lawmakers who've said they will not attend in person next week or when the session starts?
Lisa, thanks for the question. We always have a couple people for family reasons or other reasons that aren't there for opening day, but we are constitutionally required to show up in person to get sworn in and to organize. At this point, other than maybe a member who is on an extended trip, we will have everybody there.
So the speaker is very cordial and polite, thanking people for their questions. I wish you hadn't asked that question, Lisa. So, I mean, I do like you. We go way back. So I don't mean to be fooling around. I'm looking at the number of Democrats here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the number of Republicans, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That are supposed. Wait a minute, I'm wrong. I shortchanged the D's. Doing this stuff on both sides of the pages gets the old guy confused. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Democrats, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Republicans are supposed to be sworn in on Monday. We're definitely going to be short 1 because Senator Olson has resigned effective Sunday, and it hasn't been time to replace him. So we're going to be at 29 for sure. I do not know how many members are going to be on the Senate floor on Monday. I do know there will be a quorum. There will be a quorum. So that's all I can say about that. so I don't know how else to tell you about my situation here. We're working on it. We'll see. I believe I can say all the Senate Democrats are going to be on the floor. I'll make that statement. And there will be enough Senate Republicans that we can have a session. But that's all I can say at this time.
But have there been any staff members or lawmakers who have said for safety reasons, they don't want to be there?
I don't know if I they're supposed to sign a sheet, and I don't know if they haven't brought me the sheets. I don't know how to answer that question. That's
Well,
happened that's happened in the special session where they actually requested that, and it's in writing. But at this time, and now my staff has entered the room because they're afraid I'll always say something wrong, and have said to me that we do not have any request in writing as of this moment, which is Thursday, what's the date? 7th? 7th, it's almost noon, that say that they will not be there because they're afraid for their safety and or their health.
And I'm not aware either. We have built confidence, I think, with our members about how we have done things in the 3 special sessions in terms of the protocols in the building, wearing masks. So I think we're doing the best we can, and I think that has helped. And there will be limited staff in the building because of distancing requirements. I, for example, only have a couple members of staff in my office. I think members, if they have any staff, they will only have 1. But I expect it'll be a very limited number of people in the building on opening day.
And my staff, I don't know who's going to be here because they haven't told me. That shows you who's the boss of my staff. But for sure, they're not going to be on the Senate floor. They will not be on the Senate floor, which probably is not a good idea for me because I tend to need things. I'm a needy guy. But the fact is, I don't know who's going to be here. There aren't going to be many. And any staff that I have here will not be on the Senate floor.
Just a quick follow-up based on Mayor Wheeler was confronted by some angry folks last night when he was out to dinner. Have either of you changed your habits out in public, or do you intend to?
In my household, we have very limited activities outside our home to model best behavior, other than grocery stores and things like that. We stay very close to home, and because my wife and I think that's the best thing to do.
So I don't know. I take long drives because I get bored at home. They don't want me getting out of my car. I don't know. I've been known to go to Fred Meyer's and shop, which is stone's throw from where I live. I can take the long walks around the park near me. We don't go to restaurants, if that's what you're asking. We don't go to theaters. I guess they're closed. I pretty much, I don't get I need to work out, and I don't get to do that because the nonprofit where I was going, because the Y has been taken down here and we're trying to rebuild it. I don't think I have changed much. I am nervous. Well, I'll tell you this though, we don't travel. That's really been sad. It's really been hard on my wife because of the grandchildren, particularly in Montana, but even the grandchildren in Sherwood. So no, we pretty much stay here, stay around. I stay around Salem or city, the area. So I can't say I've changed much. I'm not, nah.
My cooking's gotten a lot better.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, last question. We'll go back to Hillary Baroud at the Oregonian.
So Senate President, you don't have a Peloton bike in your house yet?
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I don't have the kind of square footage that you have in all your houses.
I doubt that, Peter. Well, I was joking, but to get to the serious question, because I know we're tight on time. Just going back to quorum on the floor, there were 2 people who had, I think, been the people who filed initiatives that got dropped in 2020 during the pandemic to punish lawmakers who deny quorum. So Speaker and Senate President, could you comment on whether that's something that needs to happen in the next couple years, that Oregonians perhaps pass some measures to make it more difficult to deny quorum?
Well, I do know on the House side, we're currently in a small work group of members, evenly split between Republicans and Democrats, is working on the rules for opening day for the House rules that will have to include elements of the safety plan that we've been talking about. One of the things that is up for consideration is the ability to fine members if they have an unexcused absence that would affect quorum. So we anticipate some inclusion in our rules on opening day on that issue.
The issue, I'm sad to say is, I really am sad to say this, we're going to have to deal with this because it's being used too frequently now. The Senate, the House Democrats used this thing in the past. I didn't approve it. The Senate Republicans have used it. Now the House Republicans. This has now been weaponized and it's not good. We're going to have to go to the Constitution. I think the number 20 is just way too much. Got to get that lowered, because it's one thing when you find people and you go out, send the state police out to find them, which takes them away from other important things. The question is, government's got to govern. And I'd like to think that the number was lowered. The ability to try to stop things by not being there would be dramatically limited. And to me, that's the tragedy of the situation. We're going to be forced to do that. I think the public's going to have to get involved in this with a Senate amendment. And I'm sure there's going to be legislation to that effect here, this session. So I do think this is an issue that's going to require that kind of dynamic approach to how we deal with people not showing up in the floors of the House and the Senate, simply to deny quorum and to try to stop action.
So if I could just make a final comment, I think that was the last question. First of all, thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to try to do this as often as possible because I think you have an incredibly important job, even more than it's ever been before, I think, in this upcoming session, to be those eyes and ears in the building. Everyone will be able to be watching floors streamed, and committees will be streamed and things like that people can watch. But your ability to be and catch some of the nuances of being on the floor or other things, and your ability to communicate to the public about the things that are going on that are of extreme importance right now is never been more important. So I just want to thank you. And again, any assault of reporters is completely unacceptable. We really appreciate those of you who've been putting yourselves out there to record demonstrations and other things. You're really important to us right now. So thank you for your public service and what you're going to be doing in the session ahead.
So I just want to say that one of the things I'm concerned about is everybody was wishing everybody a happy New Year's a few days ago, and I didn't do that. I wish people a new year. I hope you have a new year, because a year, there's the budget year, there's the anniversary year, there's the calendar year. And to be very frank with you, we're still in the year. I'm sorry. I think a lot of people think, well, 2021, it's a new year. No, I hope you have a new year, but right now, this year is continuing, and we're up against the same things, sadly, that we were in July and August, whatever. So I just am really worried that the seriousness of what the Oregon Legislature is about to try is very, very great. It's very serious. And I hope that the legislators understand this. And I hope the media understands it, because basically it's a new way to govern, a new way to govern. I got to tell you that it is, because of this virtual issue, because of the threat of violence, because of disease. I mean, I could go on and on. This is a new way of governing that we are going to attempt and are attempting. And that in itself, it can't be just an experiment. Well, if it didn't work, it didn't work. We don't get that luxury. This thing's got to work. So I hope that's the attitude of all the players and all the parts of the media. We will have to be scrutinized, and our activities will have to be scrutinized, and they'll have to be evaluated by you and others. But it is a noble calling, I think a glorious calling, to be allowed to be a part of this new way of governing. I hope we're up to it. I think we're up to it. However, it's not just it starts money, as I said, it's already started. We have started this way back right after we got news of the pandemic. We started with a joint committee that we tried to get the governor to bring us in a special session. Didn't happen. Then we finally did. Then we did it again. Then we did it again. So in some ways, this new way of governing has been with us, but the dynamics of it is about to really get profound, because I'm talking the 11th and then the 19th January. And then Madam Speaker, maybe I'm wrong, is it June 27th? It's supposed to end or signing die, at least it'll be in June, probably. That's a long time to be trying to do what we're trying to do. Hopefully we'll make some adjustments before then, but I can't guarantee it. So thank you all for being here. And I'm willing, if you want to come to after me, either with more, you please feel free to do so. You can call me on my cell phone, whatever. And with that, I guess I'll just let everybody go. And I wish that more people you had shown me your pictures. I didn't get to see.
Well, we'll see you at eBoard tomorrow, so stay tuned. Oh, look, there we go. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. And we'll see you, if not tomorrow,
Thanks,
Monday.
everyone.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
And please, if
Thank
you
you
have
all.
any follow-ups, feel free to reach out to myself or John Martin.